Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, 5011 fam.
Kamusta ka ba, baby? Do lang conga.
Ooh, yes, I had my little shimmy ready. Doo-doo-doo-doo. It's Dee Dee, it's Jay. We're back, y'all.
Yeah.
5011 Chronicles, season 5, doing what we do, having conversations that spark conversation. And as y'all know, this is a season of the 5011 reviews, y'all. So we are about to
Yeah.
get into it. This episode is about a fairly new show.
Mm-hmm.
Some of you heard of it, some of you have not, and it's called The Bear. So get ready to buckle in, get ready to go on a ride to learn about what this show
Yeah.
is about, but also just some of the takeaways we had. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of the 5011 Chronicles. Bow. So before we get into it, for those of you who don't know, we love food. We love all kinds of food. I'm the experimenter with food. I am a foodie at my core. I
You
like
are a
trying different
foodie. Yeah.
things. I love trying different things and different cultures and just experiencing all types of food. And so lately in my life, I've been having this culinary calling of getting more into it and studying it more and understanding the science behind it. And I've wanted to watch this show for a long time. Like when it first came out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch that one right there. Um, but it took me a little bit longer. Life be lifing, and we get
Yeah.
distracted. And I started One Piece, which is 3,776 episodes. And
Okay.
so, all
And
the episodes of One
counting.
Piece and counting, right? But ultimately, it all kind of got me back on this roundabout road to this show. And I
Yeah.
watched it and I had to recommend it to Dee because it's not just a show for people who like food. Like it's a dramedy at its core. It just happens to
Mm-hmm.
be the setting just happens to be a restaurant. Um,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that I think most people can get into. Most people will find some way to connect to a character, to a theme, to a concept in it. And Dee watched it. And before we give our actual views on it, I feel like it's so necessary that I read the synopsis because we're going to be talking about this show and y'all need to know what's going on. So here's the synopsis. A young chef from the fine dining world comes home to Chicago to run his family's sandwich shop after a heartbreaking death in the family. A world away from what he's used to, Carmy must balance the soul crushing realities of small business ownership, his strong willed and recalcitrant, oh wow, I have never said that word a day in my life,
Get your Googles,
recalcitrant
people.
kitchen staff, and his strained familial relationships, all while grappling with the impact of his brother's suicide. As Carmy fights to transform both the shop and himself, he works alongside a rough around the edges kitchen crew that ultimately reveals itself to be his chosen family.
Mhm.
That is such a great way to
Isn't
sum up
that
the show.
adorable?
It's such a great way to sum up the show. And I even think this idea, which we can get into a little bit later, this idea of your blood family versus your chosen family is something that really shows up a lot in this show. I think it's relevant. I would say to both of us. It's pretty relevant to both of
I was
us,
gonna say
even.
you're my kitchen
Um,
family that became
yeah, like you're my kitchen family,
my
like
purpose.
literally. And I would even say that there are moments of this that we'll also get into that were triggering, like because we both have
Yeah.
worked in the food industry. So
Yeah.
the show is like, let's talk really quick about the cast because the show itself, the meat and potatoes, the episodes, the content are mind blowing. But let's
Mm.
start. Let's set the scene. It's taking place in
Yeah.
Chicago, so y'all know
Yeah.
Chicago has its own vibe. Chicago's also a culinary scene.
Mm-hmm.
They got
Oh,
their
that's
own
good
things. They're
food.
known worldwide for their culinary scene, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also known worldwide for their grit. Like this is a
Yeah.
gritty type show too. It has some grit. It has some grime. It's not your perfect polished it's not the Cosby Show. You're not
Right.
watching that type of sitcom. It's something very different, very grimy, very real. For people who are offended by cussing, this isn't your show. You know,
Nope.
this is not it. But for people who enjoy it, this is your show. This is your show. Um, but like you've got this amazing cast, and the main three that we're going to talk about more people on the show. There's some great guest stars we're going to get into, but the main three to keep in mind. Those of you who ever seen Shameless, he played Lip on Shameless. He's the star of this. He plays Carmy. His name is Jeremy Allen White. I love Jeremy Allen White. He's also been in that movie, The Iron Claw, about the wrestling dynasty.
Oh, okay.
What's that family's name?
Okay,
Devon
Lucy.
Erics.
I think
Devon
I've seen
Erics,
that.
and it's been on my list to watch because Devon Eric. They called it the Von Erich curse. Anybody who's seen Dark Side of the Ring or knows about wrestling knows about the Von Erich curse. But he played in that. He did a phenomenal job. He killed it in Shameless.
Mm.
And
I didn't
this role
really.
to me was just, it was so, he was so good. And those
He
eyes,
was. He was really
he's got
good.
really captivating blue eyes, like not even just like regular Wahite blue eyes, but these are like
Yeah.
real, like,
I mean, the eyes were stressed 98% of the show.
99,
It
like
was nothing but just pure stressed.
pure stress. But he delivered that role, I think, wonderfully. Second on the call
He did.
sheet, Ayo Edebiri, she plays the character Sydney.
Yes.
And Sydney is one of those characters. You know, I think she's a pretty polarizing character, in my opinion, because either you like her or you don't.
Literally.
But she's the sous chef. She comes in as a sous chef to Carmy, and she brings a different energy. She's got this hunger. She's young. She's very hungry for it. Almost like there's tastes of naivete. There's tastes of impatience and immaturity. There's still a lot of growth for her as a person, but as a character, I think it's a great balance to Carmy, who's a little more on the serious side, a little more. He's been like time tested. He's been through the trials. He's worked in the industry. He's won the Michelin star or maintained the Michelin star. So that's been his experience. And then she's someone who's very fresh, who's had a failed business, who has who has the drive, just needs the structure. And then third on the call list is, and I think his name is pronounced Ebon Moss-Bacharach, either way. He plays Cousin.
Yes.
Now, if y'all are looking for a standout star in this show, Cousin is one of those characters where you just be like, did he really just say that? And it's like, yeah, he did.
And it's like
he did really
like
just
this
say that.
love-hate thing for him, because it's like you kind of feel for him, you kind of want to root for him, but then it just be like, Cousin. Like, come on.
Every time I feel like I'm in his corner, he does or says something within seconds. It's not even like he waits a whole scene. It's within seconds. But also, one thing that they got really right, in my opinion, and I know that there's mixed reviews about this, but in my opinion, they got the casting right. You have a balanced cast. You've got people of different ages. You've got people of different backgrounds. They look like real people. They look like real people. You know, they're not like, you don't have this model cast. You've got they run the gamut of attractiveness. They run the gamut of different types of backgrounds and ethnicities. We've got Hispanic, we've got brown, we've got black, we've got white, we've got all of it. You know, everybody's kind of represented on this show. And I think that's something that's really important. Is I get some people saying, oh, it's a super liberal, woke XYZ agenda. No, people just want to see themselves. People want to see someone who looks like them on every show. People are like that with every show that has such a balanced cast, is that it's some liberal woke agenda. It is like
restaurant, everybody go be there.
You know what's crazy though is the people who be saying it, they be wanting the shows to be lily white and straight male. Just saying. And those are the ones who have the most complaints, typically. So I just think it's a great, like, for me, it was refreshing. The cast was refreshing. The concept was different. We've seen shows about restaurants. We've seen shows about the grind in a workplace, but it's a little bit different. So let's get into it. Well, super quick. I'd wanted to watch the show prior to it. When it was first being like promoted and everything, I wanted to watch it. And of course, like I said, life lifed. And then we got to this point where the award season of this year happens. And I'm going to say that was actually what made me watch the show, because I wanted to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm always talking about uplifting our up and coming, our rising Black stars. And I felt like I wasn't doing it because Ayo Edebiri swept this year. When it came to nominations, Golden Globes, Emmys, if she was nominated just about every time she won, and for a young Black woman who is fairly new in the game, fairly new to the public eye, fairly new to the big screen, I think that she has really been making a mark over the past few years. And we've definitely seen it with The Bear. The Bear, I think it definitely helped catapult her to a new level. And the show itself won, like in the past, only 2 seasons, they've won 10 Emmys. So just saying, they've been kind of killing it. So D, like, tell me about your experience with the show, because I could get into the
Okay,
foods of it all,
so
but tell me what
first
you
of
think.
all, straight out the gate, let's just start with the fact that honestly, I don't like nobody with Sweeps. Everybody got on my nerves except for Sweeps. Sweeps was just kind of chilling. He was just kind of, there when you need him. He did what needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a whole lot of chaos. We didn't really have to worry about Sweeps. Sweeps was good.
Sweeps did his
Everybody else
thing.
got on my nerves.
Everybody else. Everybody else.
Everybody else got on my nerves. Carmi was getting on my nerves. But Carmi wasn't getting on my nerves for the reason that I feel like he was getting on their nerves. Because every time that Carmi got one of them together, y'all needed to be got together.
Period.
Let's be clear
Every
on
time.
that. I agree with I wouldn't have apologized for nothing. Because, listen, he was right. He was right. But outside of that, he was stressing me out. And I needed Carmi to get Carmi, get it together. He was stressing me out.
Mm-hmm.
The sister was stressing me out just like she was stressing the mama out. Like, her, yes.
Are you okay? Are you okay?
Girl. But then want to complain that you don't want to fix it. Okay, but then stop trying to. Like, nobody's asking you to.
Mm-hmm.
So, she was getting on my nerves. Richie obviously was getting on my nerves because he's Richie.
Cousin
Sid
Richie
got on my nerves. Sid's very smart. She's good at what she does. But girl, we gonna get into it, but she got on my nerves.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be thinking you finna be reading people and you can't get read back. For you to be talking the way that you talk,
slick,
getting real slick in the mouth.
Real slick.
With the
real
quickness.
Slick.
She didn't even settle in. Because when she first came in, I thought her character was gonna go in a different direction because I thought she was gonna be kind of more of that green doe-eyed fresh look, but she was gonna be able to help them elevate because she was so fresh.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So she would have new ideas. She had a little booklet and stuff. But child, after the first little tiff with that booklet, it's girl, now it's not the time. She got on my nerves and didn't know.
You don't think that she did that though? Even though it didn't go the route maybe that we might have thought it might have gone, you don't think that she still did exactly what you just said?
Ish, yeah.
Ish, yeah, because I feel like she did. Yeah. I feel like it was definitely not the route I thought she was going to take to get that end goal. But ultimately, I feel like she still did gain everybody's respect and push them all to be better. And ultimately kind of leveled up into a level of being able to somewhat manage them to where she can pour into them and make them better. Definitely needed to be checked herself.
She needed to check herself. She wasn't being checked enough for me because every time somebody checked her, they had to come back and apologize.
So it's
no, I need y'all to check her and stand in it because she ain't always right.
She's not.
Just because you're sensitive, don't mean that what we're saying is wrong.
That's my thing. Is and this is pot kettle moment right here. How are you going to have the nerve to talk Cash Money and be so sensitive that they can look at you hard and you ready to quit? I'm packing my bags and I'm going. I'm leaving. Period. Look, that's why I'm pot kettle. I feel shot. I feel shot. I did it myself.
Eat you up. But if you eat me up, I'm going to be feeling some type of way about it.
Feeling some type of way. I don't know. It was her hunger for me was something that was almost contagious because I feel like any person who has a dream and has ambition could see themselves in her, just like they could in Carmi. Mm-hmm. They were the two dreamers. They were dreamers for sure, both of them. And I think their dreameriness, it was contagious to the rest of the kitchen staff eventually. Because I want to call him Marcus, but that might not be his name. The one who was baking. Marcus? Wasn't it Marcus?
Yes, Marcus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marcus to me
I liked his arc.
I liked his arc. I liked his arc a lot. Especially so like before we get into it, y'all, we are gonna be bouncing back and forth, and this is your spoiler alert. If you whatever. The show's been out. Season 3's coming out in a
Mm-hmm.
month. Like, buckle
So
in.
far, I've kept my commentary to just season one. I ain't said that
Yeah,
yet.
I was about to say something that I was like, "Ooh, that's in season 2." So that's why I'm like, there are 2 seasons out. We're gonna get into some of the major arcs as we continue talking, but like the
Yeah,
first season has the restaurant in one shape, and the second season has the restaurant in a separate shape, which we'll
yeah.
talk about in just a second. But that second season, how everyone was kind of legitimized, I
Mm-hmm.
loved that. That was, and like very few shows out
Richie had
there.
the best storyline.
Richie had
Richie
the
had the
best.
best
Richie, it was for me, it was
storyline.
Richie, and then
Oh my gosh.
it was
It
Richie, and then it was
literally
Marcus.
melted my heart. Like,
You know when he went to the
uh,
other restaurant?
yes. It
Yes.
like just to see when he
Yes.
came back in his suit.
In
Oh my
his suit, new attitude, new energy. Okay,
god.
okay.
Oh,
Before we get ahead of
okay.
ourselves, so first season, let's talk storyline. First season, we don't dive too much into like the family of it because the show is called The Bear. So background on that. There's several things, and there's an article out there that talks about the 5 reasons why the show could be called The Bear. I'm not doing that. You can totally read it. It's an interesting read, but we're gonna just stick to some of the main things about it because it's one of those things that you can interpret how you choose. I'm sure if there's 5 in that article, there's 15 we could come up with. So
Right.
I'm sure of it. But one
The
thing
very
is
opening scene is a
the
bear,
very
so there you go. That's why it's the
there we
bear.
go.
Boom.
That's what we're gonna go with. And
And Carmi
Carmi's
is
last
bear.
name. His last name is Berzada. So his name is Carmen Berzada, and it was just his family was lovingly referred to as the Bears. He was
Yeah.
called the Bear. That was like really his nickname.
Yeah.
And so you start with him basically inheriting this restaurant from his brother. His brother had just
Yeah.
committed suicide, which we don't immediately find out, but it was in the synopsis. I already read it, so boom.
Boom.
His brother had recently committed suicide, and in his will, he'd left his restaurant to Carmi. Although Richie is the one who'd been working there with him. They call Richie
And
cousin.
how you gonna not allow me in here, but you won't like that? That's something I gotta call God and figure out how to get to you. I'm gonna have to. That's when you call up the spirit. I'm gonna call you up and be like, "Why would you do this to me? You refuse to let me in here, and then you just gonna throw this in my lap?
So the
You
whole
just gonna
thing in
throw
my
this
lap.
mess in my lap?"
Because it was a mess. Like the restaurant Carmi inherited was
Exactly.
called the Beef. They were known in their area of Chicago for these like beef sandwiches. They made these
Yeah,
iconic sandwiches. Everybody came for the
and the
beef. And
spaghetti.
the spaghetti. And the first episode, you actually watch the preparation of the beef, the
Mm-hmm.
preparation of like all the steps that it takes into getting. And it's like it's a failing restaurant. That's the big thing to understand is although they're busy, it is a failing restaurant. So you watch the struggle of inheriting a failing restaurant, being a top notch, top of your game, like
Michelin
executive chef,
star.
Michelin starred chef, fine dining chef, and
Yes.
coming back to a hole in the wall to run it.
Yes.
And it's interesting because all season long, you get this juxtaposition. You get these moments where he flashes back to his fine dining experience
Mm-hmm.
and what that was like, and how rigid it was, and how strict it was, but how rewarding it was to get things right versus the chaos that he lives in now in this restaurant, the beef. And it's literal chaos every day. Something's
But
always
you
on
know what
fire.
though? It was a different type of chaos in the fine dining because that
It
stuff that
was
man was coming up
absolutely.
whispering to him, that's
Yes,
chaos. Because
that
you
was
gonna get up
absolute
out my
chaos.
ear is what you gonna do. Like, absolutely. You worked in a restaurant, but you know how I get there.
Period. And you know how I get down.
Ain't always.
Would have
It's
been
not gonna be
boxing. Would have been boxing in the back.
set this
Because
restaurant
it
off.
was, and that's one thing a lot of people, I don't think people are, I knew that about the restaurant industry. That in certain restaurants in particular, when you're working under a chef de cuisine or an executive chef who is like got a certain reputation, a certain standard, it comes with a lot of hazing, it comes with a lot of harassment, it comes with a lot of like down talk. Like they will destroy your
It's
self-esteem.
gonna come with some hands if you fooling with me.
And for me, that's why I've always said like going to culinary school to be a full-time chef for someone else was never what I wanted to do. Because if I'm going to grind to be hollered at and treated some kind of way, let me do another kind of grind that's going to be a little bit more fulfilling. Like let me go in a whole different direction. I'm not going to do that type of grind just to put a filet mignon on the plate. So
The way it would have started, all they would have heard was me yell. Like, ain't no. I remember that the one time that you know who tried that with me, and what did I do? You can do it yourself.
Period.
Because what you're not gonna do is you're not gonna no. Now I didn't warn you to back up off me. Cool out. You do it too much.
It
I
would
don't
have
care if you
been
used to
that
be in the
whispering crazy in
military.
my
This
ear.
ain't that.
It would have been that whispering crazy in my ear that I would have hit you with it. But who are you talking to?
Who are you
Because
talking
if
to?
you're talking to the
And
person
why
who
are
be
you
finishing
so
this
close
plate,
to me?
why are you so close to me?
That is when I tell you that makes my skin crawl because I don't like to be touched and I don't like for nobody to stand close to me like that. Like if
On me.
I feel like the distance you should be from me is the closeness of our relationship. If we ain't like this in our relationship, you should never be this close
You
to
should never be
me.
that close to me.
Like if you
Hilarious.
don't know me like that, I should barely see you.
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to reach out, stretch, and nowhere near you.
But you
I'm
know what I think is
sorry.
crazy about it? What I think is really crazy about Carmi is the fact that he had this background. He had this rigid training. He had these
Mm-hmm.
accolades where you maintain the Michelin star and you've done all this, that, and the other. You come into your family restaurant essentially, and I don't think that any of them had any idea what those accolades really meant. Like we later
No.
find out his brother did, but none of them knew what it meant. Why the structure was so important to him. Why the rigidity that he tried to bring was important to how the business could succeed. They didn't understand. And then I don't think many of them actually witnessed because in that first episode, you watch him grind to get the right meat there
Mm-hmm.
in time. I don't think any of them ever saw him grind when things had been messed up and he had to fix them. Nobody ever really, like, there were a couple of times where they pitched in to help, but most of the time he carried that by himself.
Yeah.
He would fix it, then he would start cooking. And it's like every single time he would
Yeah.
handle the problem and then go straight into the kitchen and start cooking.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like that hunger for what you want. Like that's where he always wanted to be. He went fine dining to get back at his family because they wouldn't let
And
him in the
it's
restaurant.
crazy too that he had so much structure and like so much stability when it came to the kitchen. But once he left that kitchen, it was utter chaos.
Every
No
time.
structure, no
Every time.
stability, no grounding, just all over the place.
And I think even at
I
one
don't get
point, I remember him saying something like, because for me, I always would say something like if it were me in his shoes, for example, we'll just use that. If it were me in his shoes and people would be like, well, why do you do it? Oh, because I love it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do. But I remember I can't remember which episode it was, but someone asked him something to the effect of
And
like,
he was
do you
like,
love it? And he was like,
"It's
no.
not. No,
He's like,
I don't."
no, but I show up like every single
Yeah.
day. He's passionate about it. He enjoys it to a certain degree, but he does
Mm-hmm.
not claim love for it. And to me, that was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. This is very interesting because he's good
That
at
was when
it.
he was in the basement talking to Richie, because Richie was saying
Hmm.
like, "You have a thing, like you have something that you love." He's like, "I don't love
He's
it."
like, I don't love this. Like, I show up every day. That's different. And that was true. It was true. I think also, like, on the topic of Richie gave him so much pushback that first season.
Mhm.
So much, like, he made it so much more difficult. Every single change, every single idea, he was the roadblock. Richie was the
Yes,
roadblock season one. All,
because Richie was
every
just
chance he
like,
could
"We
get to
have a
stop him.
system. We got a way we do this." He didn't want no change. He just want to keep doing what we doing, how we doing it. But as we know, because deep down, Richie knew and was worried. Like, I can't keep up with this. This is all I got.
This
This
is
has
all I
got to
got.
work.
This is,
This
and you
cannot
know,
fail.
I feel like Richie personified the energy of the rest of the staff because they never
Mhm.
said it, but it's almost like everybody just knew, was like in their place, in their zone, did their
Yes.
thing, and that was it.
You know who was a roadblock that we didn't talk about? Who got on my? She got on my nerves more than
You talk
Richie
about
from
Tina.
the jump,
Tina.
baby. With that, her and them tied curls and that tied attitude. Like, Auntie, go sit down because we know the real tea is that you can't do this, and that's
You
why you
can't do
don't
it.
want to change it, and that's why you're mad. But what you're
I
not
like
finna do
Tina.
is be hazing me and doing the most. When he picked
Big
his
facts.
knife up off the floor, the way now you know. Back in my day, I'd throw something so fast. That knife would have flew and just landed in the wall like a
Right
movie.
beside
You know
her.
how it would have just
Right
been stuck
beside
in the
her.
wall?
Because that was mad
Play
disrespectful.
with me.
That was
Do
mad
not
disrespectful.
play with me. You lucky he didn't walk in and clean house on your bean head, because you can, me, I don't even know you. You can go. Like, if your job is that important to you, you wouldn't be that disrespectful. You can leave.
Period. I will
You ain't
say
gotta be here.
one running joke with Tina that I really liked was her calling him Jeff. I
Yes,
thought
that
that
was
was one of my
cute.
every time she would say it until she changed season 2, because season 2 marked, I think, a major transition for every single
Yeah,
character and every single
yeah.
story arc. But that first season, everything was like tongue in cheek. I don't think any of them outside of Carmi and Sydney understood the
What they were trying to
magnitude
do.
of what they were trying to do, and then how big the problem actually was with the current restaurant.
Yeah,
I don't think they
yeah.
understood, because he was at one
They
point he was
messed they
trying to
were
get him
in
to
it.
get that. They were just in the mess. And it makes me think, real quick side story, real quick side moment. It's so relevant. I always talk, I've said it on previous episodes here and on Safe Space, about this speech of TT Iyanla's I heard that just did it for me, where she was talking about it's all about you and everything that happens in your life is a reflection of what's going on within you. But there's something she was talking about, how when we are able to recognize dysfunction in others, that is familiar to us. One other thing she gave this great allegory about going to the eye doctor, and the doctor asking her where her glasses were. And she's like, what glasses? She's like, your glasses. Where your glasses at? She's like, I ain't got no glasses. I need glasses? And she said, you need 3 pair of glasses. She said, you need some glasses to drive, you need some glasses to read, and you need some glasses to see. And she said, no, I can
I
see
ain't got
just
but 2
fine.
eyes.
The ministry and the sermon in that, she's like, I can see just fine. And the doctor said, no, Ms. Van Zant, you cannot. Because our eyes adjust to the level of dysfunction present. They adjust to whatever level of dysfunction, and that just becomes our norm. That is where that staff was. Their eyes, their spirits, their energies had adjusted to the level of dysfunction, and they were cool with that, because that was their 9 to 5. They showed up
That's
every day,
like
they did their
me not
job, and they
wearing
went
my
home.
glasses. My eyes have adjusted to the dysfunction. If the letter is way back there, it's gonna be a little blurry. But we're okay.
That first season to me, I feel like if I could sum it up in one word, I would say frantic. Like, if you had to sum up season 1 in one word, what would you say?
If I had to sum up season 1 in one word, it would be chaos.
Yeah, absolute chaos, absolutely frantic. It was wild. Season 1
You know how
ends.
you be watching something and you don't even realize you done tensed up with them, and you be like, "Child, y'all got me."
I
Like,
would have to take breaks. I would like finish the episode and be like, okay, I need to walk around my bed. Like, I need to take a lap through the house and grab me a
there was
sparkling
this
water.
one part where like they were in the middle of everything was going on, and it was like everybody's yelling quarter and somebody's hollering for this, somebody's doing this, and they were in Marcus's area, I think, trying to get some bread or something, and it was like
Hmm
6 different people hollering, and I was just like, PTSD. Oh my gosh. Like, everybody shut
So
up.
let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because it was like, for me, I've been removed from restaurants for a little while now, but it definitely took me right back. It took me right
Mm-hmm.
back to yelling for runners, because I used to be a food
Mm-hmm.
expediter, and I enjoy food expediting a lot. I feel like I was pretty good at it. But it was one of those things that was like, when you watch somebody else do it, and you watch the environment somewhere else that kind of matches some of the crazy that we experience, because we worked for a pretty crazy um
Yeah.
casual dining spot. We've talked about it
Yeah.
before, and I don't know, there were episodes that took me back there, that took me back. I'm not going to say that I miss it, but it was like nostalgia. It was like nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was bittersweet. There were sweet moments. I'm like, oh man, that's where I met Dee, that's where I met Asia. Like, we used to have some good times,
Yeah.
but I feel like we used to have a lot of bad
But
times
that
too.
place itself,
The
oh,
place was so toxic. The environment
the
was
me
toxic.
that I was in that place, my God,
What haven't we come a long
Lord,
way? Haven't we come a long way?
oh, the me that was in that place, my Lord.
So
She wouldn't
without
even been able to
ruining,
grow in that place.
yeah, that was a place that was stifling growth, honestly.
Yes.
It was restrictive, and it kind of constricted around those in it. And I don't think the place itself had that intention. I think
Mm-hmm.
the way that we were staffed, some of the people in charge, the corporation over us, all of that played a role in it. Like, and then it
The
being
Mystic
like
Grove.
it being food. Naturally, food, grocery stores, they have that similar kind of vibe. Bars, they have that similar kind of energy where it can be, if you have a good team, it can be a great vibe, great energy, everybody's cool. But it's also one of those things, all it takes is one or two bad apples, and the
Yeah.
energy in the whole space can be thrown off, or one or two bad managers, and the whole space can
Mm-hmm.
be a whole different thing. And we experienced
Shoot,
all of the above.
about managers, it could only take is one shift. They was just trying to get like that moment when that rush hit and that
Hmm.
reality hit and everybody got to lock in and it's just complete chaos, but everybody is locked in. It's like the wildest thing ever.
It
It's the
was.
wildest thing ever.
Yeah. And it really does take you back to being in food industry and getting hit and being in the weeds
Mm-hmm.
and ripping and running and then being pissed off with the people you work with, but still having to rely on them, ask them to get you drinks, ask them to check on your table while you wait on a plate, like ask them to help you carry stuff, but being pissed off with them, like
We can even be
emotions are
cool
always so
outside of
high.
work, dude. It might be a moment.
It might be a moment. Emotions, I feel like emotions always run high in
Yeah.
restaurants and those type of environments. And it's so natural because you're also dealing with the public, and the public's not making it
Mm-hmm.
any easier.
Mm-mm.
Y'all make it worse, as a matter of fact. Public, y'all make it worse every time. 99.6% of the time. The 0.4% of the time, there are nice people out there who tip and are gracious and understanding. But that's only
Yes.
0.4% of the time. So yeah, for me it did, there was some emotional scars I didn't realize were there watching that, because I'm like, dang, unfinished journey for me at one point, even like I didn't get to put a cherry on top of my journey where we were,
Yeah.
um and leave on my own terms. So that was another one of those things that just like, that was interesting, because it brought
Yeah.
those things back. Those things kind of bubble to the surface, and anyone who's worked in hospitality, I feel like, will be able to relate to several moments within this show. um, Season one ends, and we're not going to say exactly what happens, but we're going to talk about some of the result and the effect of what happens at the end of season one. So season one ends and season two begins, and when season two begins, the restaurant is being rebranded, and it's no longer the beef; it is now the bear, which ties into the name, of course. Now we see where we were going. But if you watch the show, you'll realize that was originally going to be the concept anyway. So the
Mm-hmm.
bear is the concept that Carmi always had. It connects him back to his brother. It connects him back to his family. And season two was one for the books because we get to meet the family child. And
Baby.
there's some guest stars. I'm gonna talk about two of them, or three. Season two had so many remarkable guest stars because not only do we start to get deeper into understanding his family and his background and why Carmi's the way he is and why Sugar's the way she is. His sister Sugar, her nickname is Sugar. Yeah, so that's not her real name. Seeing why they are the way that they are, why she doesn't want to be in the restaurant, and why he has to be in the restaurant because she has an aversion to staying outside of the restaurant, and he
Mm-hmm.
always is there. It's really his. For it to be as chaotic as it is, it's somewhat his happy place. Like that's where
Yeah.
he has to be his best self. And I think it's just because
And
he's
he can
calling it
block
in
out the
food. He
noise
can
of
block
all
out
the other
everything else.
chaos in his real life.
And we see that they are starting to legitimize the restaurant as well. So you've got two kind of like main roads this story is taking in season two. You've got the legitimization of the staff. Everyone's being given a specialty. Everyone's being given an area of focus. Everyone is being sent for more study and more research to get better at their areas. And then you've got the deep diving into the backstory, understanding Carmi, his sister, his brother, like his motivations. Everything is starting to make more sense now. And even at the end of season one, there were some things that happened that led them into having more money so that we can see that the brother actually did
Yeah.
set Carmi up for success. Don't want to spill all of it because we do want you to watch it, but
Yeah.
we are, like we said, spoiler alert, because we are
It's
spilling some of
good.
the tea. It's really good. And even, I'm going to say this to D because D's going to know, but for me, the moment in season one with the tomatoes, the
Yes.
the canned tomatoes, because there was this whole story arc, this moment where he was like, he asked people, he's like, why was he buying these tomatoes instead of this size? Like, why was he getting these? And the brother had two explanations that he gives in this. And one of the reasons was he's like, well, they taste better in the smaller can. But the second reason, you have to watch the show to find out why he was getting certain size tomato cans to do what he did for his brother and the restaurant.
And it's like, why are you making this difficult? Like, just write this down. Like, just write down a step by step. Because no shade, no disrespect, but you knew you was finna do this. You could have wrote a little instruction down before
big facts.
You did what you did.
Big facts.
You did. It was planned. It wasn't like it was planned.
It was.
You did it. You could have wrote a little piece of something. You just got us flailing out here. Like,
flailing.
And knowing Mikey's personality, he's just sitting up giggling, just watching them.
Look what they did. Oh, they got a new floor. Like, Mikey, getting more clarification about who Mikey was in season 2, I mean, it helped. I don't think it actually made me like him. It did make me appreciate. It made me appreciate Cousin a little more, honestly.
I liked Mikey until we got to dinner, and then I saw Mikey, and I was like, "Oh, okay, got it."
So let's talk about dinner. There were some other guest stars because, like I said, this season legitimizes the staff and it dives into the family, the Berzata family. We had some remarkable performers show up in season 2. We had Will Poulter, which I love Will Poulter. He played Chef Luca, who did Marcus's training when Marcus went to train.
Yes.
So super quick, Marcus is the patisserie. He's the chef of pastries. He does the baking, the breads, the cakes. Tina is the veggie chef. She does a lot of the prep. She does a lot of the sides. Of course, we've got the CDC chef de cuisine or executive chef. That is Carmi. Sous chef is Sydney. And so they all kind of, what's his name? I can't remember his name right now.
Who? Ebra.
Yes, he is chef de partie. He does the meat.
Yes.
And then they also still have the functioning sandwich shop on the side. So they do that kind of like, that's still a thing that they do. And we've got somebody running that. And then we've got front of the house. So they have like a really,
what were they? The flax or what was
the facts. Fat.
The facts. Yes.
Yeah. Fat.
What I tell you of that?
He was literally comedic relief because he's a hot mess.
He was one of my favorite parts of the show.
Hot mess.
Oh my goodness.
Childhood friend Fat. He's like the store handyman, if you will. Yes. He also helps on the front end. He and his brother help on the front end. As the restaurant continues to go through renovations and remodeling, because that's what's happening in the second season. We're remodeling, we're renovating, we're finding all the problems, but we're also like the renovating and remodeling is not just happening on a physical level for the restaurant; it's happening on an infrastructure, like infrastructural level. Everyone's evolving. I love that. First of all, I love Will Poulter. I've been watching Will Poulter for a few years. I think he's so good. He's so good. And there's a Marvel connection here. I don't know if y'all know this, people. Will Poulter and Ebon Moss-Bachrach, they're both Marvel stars. One has been in a Marvel movie. Will Poulter played Adam Warlock in Guardians.
Yes, I remember.
The guy playing Cousin, Richie, do you know who he's been cast as?
I don't know who Richie
He's going to be the Thing in Fantastic Four.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he's going to be the Thing. So I thought that was like really cool. Because I'm like, I love the MCU connection, that they're both in the MCU. But this was also like my first like real deal just watching him in something that I remembered him from like vividly. Oh, that's him. I'd seen his face and I kept seeing his face for the Fantastic Four. And I'm like, I know that guy. Where do I know him from? The Bear. That's where I know him from. So that's going to be really exciting because we'll be able to see both of them again in the MCU. But seeing them in this, Will Poulter's character as this top-notch, pastry chef, training Marcus, showing Marcus all of the cool science, because you get to see some of the really cool things like making jellies and doing all
Yeah.
the really cool
I
techniques.
like how they do that part of it too.
I loved it because in
Yeah.
particular
It's kind of like
Marcus's episode,
CSI, but for food.
that's exactly what it is. It's food science, you know, like, and
Yeah.
I love that Marcus was the first one who signed on to the passion. He was the first one who got the excitement bug. It was like
Yeah,
contagious, and he got
he
it
started
first.
reading the books,
Started
putting
reading
the
books,
pictures
started
up
putting his
there.
things up. You know, he started baking cakes. He's like, "How about we try baking cakes? I want to see if we can do it. I want to make the perfect donut." He's
And
also a
it kind of
perfect
sparked
example.
everybody else.
It got everybody else excited. He's a perfect example of when you have the right leader in place, and then you put the right igniters of flame in place, that you can light a whole team up. You can get a whole team excited. At the same time, that excitement has to come with some structure when you have a lot that you're doing. And Marcus is a
Yeah.
perfect example of if you're not focusing on the main
Listen,
task at hand.
you
You're
gotta be
simply
bad
baking
with that
fresh
donut.
bread and cakes every day, and you spend a whole shift working on donuts, and now you're behind on cakes.
Now you're mad at me.
And now you're mad at me
You
because
just
you
brought me
overdid
this
it.
donut and I just smacked it out your head because we are getting crushed right now. I keep asking you for this one particular thing, and you sitting here trying to get this donut right.
Trying to get the donut perfect. Man. So yes, Will Poulter plays Chef Luca, who is going to be coming back season 3. Season 3 premieres June 27th. So we're excited about that. But 2 other co-stars come, and they come in one of my favorite episodes of the entire show. And all of my favorite scenes just about were in this episode. It was crazy, most unhinged episode of both seasons. And one is the growing legend, the Scream Queen herself, the growing icon, Sarah Paulson.
Yes.
Sarah Paulson was up in this thing, y'all. And y'all know it's real when Sarah Paulson shows up to the party. She's going to use all of her face to act, and she is going to deliver.
She's going to
And she did. One of my favorite scenes was when her and the Fax were in the bathroom smoking weed. That cracked me up so much because after they smoked, like just laughing, chiefing, after they smoked, she was hilarious at the dinner table to me because everything was so funny to her.
Dinner table was everything.
But the star who has to have a light shone on her, the legend herself, been acting since she was all of 15, 16 years old. Jamie Lee Curtis is the mother, y'all.
Yes.
Jamie Lee Curtis. And I have never seen her like this.
It's the best casting ever.
I have never seen her like this. I mean, we've seen her crazy, like Halloween and stuff. We've seen her crazy, but usually there's like a reason that, you're being chased by a serial killer. Okay, that'll make you crazy.
This was a little more dynamic.
This was it was layers to the erratic behavior. And to give y'all reference, there's an episode, I think I actually remember the name of the episode. It's called The Dinner of the Seven Fishes. It's something like that.
Yeah, the 7 fish. One of them I think is like forks or something, and then one of them is like 7 fishes or something.
Yes.
Like that.
The 7 fishes. Y'all, this dinner was one of the most unhinged things I've ever seen besides watching the show. Right. We didn't even talk about, what's his name, Maddie? What's his name? The brother-in-law. He always just so oblivious, not reading the room, not paying attention, doing what he was asked not to do every single time. But to set the scene, they're having a big family dinner. I think it's like Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's a holiday. Yeah. It's some kind of big holiday dinner, and the mom has taken it upon herself to cook the Feast of 7 Fishes, which is big in some families, but it's literally where they have 7 fish dishes, 7 seafood dishes for dinner. And it's, I guess, a big tradition in their family on this show. And it's always, from even just them talking up the dinner, it's always a night of chaos. It's always chaotic. Yeah. Someone always gets cussed out all night. Jamie Lee Curtis, her character's always drunk, and she always owned 1100. And everybody always just leaves over it. And they rarely eat the dinner. That, from what I understand, they rarely ever eat the dinner. The dinner usually does not get eaten because of the course of events.
Is keeping his foot on
Uncle Lee.
The whole night.
Uncle Lee needed to be popped in his lip.
With his foot on his He didn't want to hear that man speak a word.
Nothing.
Like, I
He
don't
was
even know why he's
so
talking.
disrespectful. And he definitely had some points that he made that were
Sick of him.
valid. He was just so over it. And he had no filter and he had no.
Like the disdain he had it was literally disdain. Like, I don't like that you're here. I don't like that you're talking. I don't like that you're telling stories because I don't like you.
And that was him and Mikey, right?
Yes.
Him and Mikey going back and forth was, no, for me, it's hilarious. And y'all have to watch this because it's all the nuances. There's so many things that happen in this one episode or in these two episodes that give you so much backstory on so many of the characters. It lets you better understand Richie. It lets you better understand Mikey. You better understand Carmen. You better understand Sugar. You better understand the family dynamic and why the siblings were as close as they were, but at the same time, not as close as they could be. Like, you understand the dynamics of this family because of these couple of episodes. And
Steven was
literally,
one of the best parts of that whole thing.
I agree. It was just, oh my gosh. I just remember having to pause in moments because the energy would be so high and so thick of just chaos and like hollering and then stupidity. There'd be so much stupidity. Like Sugar, who normally I agreed with, she would irritate me, but I would normally be like, she's right. I just don't like her delivery most of the time. She irritated the crap out of me in this episode because why do you keep asking that lady if she's okay? Leave her alone. Get you a glass of wine and go somewhere.
Like, right. At first, it was difficult for me to even realize how erratic the mom was because, like, at first I was like, I must be erratic because I felt her a lot of this. Like, stop. I've asked you calmly and nicely. Stop asking me if I'm okay. Please stop asking me that. Let me cook my dinner. Every time somebody come up, let me cook my dinner. They keep telling people before they walk in, don't walk in there, and they keep walking in anyway.
And they keep going in there.
Keep going in here. And we
every
keep telling
time.
y'all to do it. And y'all do exactly what we tell y'all not to do. And now y'all looking at her like she crazy when she hollering and fussing. But we told y'all not to do it.
For me, it was
everybody, get out.
It was Mikey and Carmi having her outside being like, okay, but you've got to stop asking her, is she okay? You literally, you have to stop it. And it's like and within just a few scenes, she did it again and then wondered why mom blew up. Leave her alone.
Pouring out the alcohol. First of all, the alcohol you pouring out ain't even what's in that glass.
That's not what she's drinking. Why you over here thinking you skipping steps? Sugar was
like dealing with you asking me if I'm okay all night. I need a glass of wine.
That dynamic. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
That chaos in that house, I couldn't live like that. I could not.
The forks.
That overstimulation. Now the dinner table, totally would love to be at that dinner table.
Once a year. That's it.
Once a year.
Once a year. I can look forward to it. I can
me to the Seven Fishes dinner.
I can have my face mask on in case somebody throwing forks.
And I'm not going in the kitchen.
At all. I'm gonna speak to her when hey auntie, it's so good to see you. Let me know if you need something.
Everything
You're not saying another word until you put food out. Because she needed it.
I'm gonna do is tell you how great it did and how good of a job you did.
Period. Every time. I appreciate you so much. You are okay? So because I mean they were driving that. And I think that there's definitely
at the table. It's like, girl.
So unhinged. Because I even think about like later on in that season, with the grand reopening of the restaurant, and that moment that they have outside, the moment that was had outside, to me, it kind of brought some more. It was almost like full circle, because she's definitely unhinged, and there's definitely got to be some type of mental illness in play. But it's also, I think there's also issues greater than, or not greater. I'm going to say in compounded. We're going to compound mental illness with issues of like maybe how she viewed her self-view, like worth and things like that. Because just some of the language she chose when she was about why she couldn't come in and why or she didn't need to be there, why he didn't want her there, all these different things. I don't know. It was interesting because I think any human can see themselves in her in some form or
Yeah.
fashion. Maybe not as
And that's
erratic.
the
You might not
thing
be
is
that
like,
loud.
I think everybody has different levels of their tipping point, but
Mm-hmm.
anybody could be, because to me at first, I didn't really view her as unhinged at first. I
I
felt
did.
like she was almost like more of a ticking time bomb than
Mm.
anything. But it's like, because you can't just be in that chaotic of a space like that, and that she probably grew up like that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people whose families interact like that, it's usually a generational thing. It's just, that's
Yeah.
just how they interact.
How
You know
they
what I
interact.
mean?
Yeah.
Not realizing until they're outside of the home of like, oh, there's a less chaotic way of being. We got to be hollering all the damn time
There's a different
about
way to do
everything.
things. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, the reason why I say I didn't feel like she was as unhinged is because she was she was trying to stop herself
She
the
was.
whole night
She was. And they
from
were
getting
picking. You're
there.
right. You're right.
And I feel
They were
like
picking.
it's like you said, it's a combination of, it was kind of a snowball and a combination of things, because like you have somebody who's already battling with themselves, right? But then you add in somebody constantly, first of all, asking you, "Are you okay?" when you're trying to block out the fact that you're not okay, so that you can be
Mm-hmm.
okay for this one night.
For this, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to be okay right now, and you keep coming to me asking me if I'm okay. And
And
it
it's
turns to
making
this
me
thing, and
worse.
then
Yeah.
it is that you in your head of like questioning how you're showing up in the moment and everything. Like it made it worse. You're in this chaotic environment in general because you cooking 7 freaking dishes, 7
Like a
meals,
fool.
which, and you don't want nobody to really help you, but you need help, and
Mm-hmm.
you holler at the person that's helping you because you already, like, your stress level is already high now. So that's why it's like at first it didn't really register to me, and then I feel like there's also some level of guilt in there for some reason too, that I feel like they
Mm.
didn't fully tap into. But there's some level of guilt in there about something,
Mm-hmm.
and I think also losing her son also doesn't help either. So that's why
Absolutely.
I'm like, I think it's one of those things where it's like you already may be like just not in a good space in life, and then life decides to hit you with whatever it can, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, or put you in these chaotic situations consistently, and
I
then anybody
honestly
can become unhinged.
I honestly agree because I also think something I noticed is that they might have talked about him a little bit, but there was very little shown about Carmi's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this third season will get maybe some of that because he hasn't been shown in the show yet. So
Yeah,
they're definitely gonna get us a good like guest star to play
and it's like,
dad.
now that we got the restaurant up, I think it's time for us to kind of see what the family
True,
side of
yeah,
that,
with the true
because
side
I
of
feel
yeah.
like too, in order for him to continue on the track that he's on, because even with, he still has his own issues with how he was with the girl, like when he was locked in
Hmm.
the freezer, and all of his insecurities just started
Came out,
pouring
yeah.
out. They just started pouring out, and these are all
Oh,
things he's gonna have to face.
that poor lady
That
walking up, and
poor.
that's what she hear. I
And
was
it's
like,
like, what made it worse is like they didn't show her on the other side, so like my brain was just picturing her on the other side, just crushed. And it's like, it's one of the
crush.
moments where like she probably wanted to say something to make it stop, but then like she is just in shock of like all of what she just walked up to hear. Because I'm just
For
coming
me,
to
it was
check
the
on
I'm sorry that you feel that way. Damn,
her. Yeah.
damn. Because
But it's
yes, she
like,
heard you, Carmi.
and it's like she was so hurt in the moment that she didn't even really see that for what it was, because it wasn't even about really her. It's about him.
About him.
He doesn't see himself as enough.
He
And
doesn't.
it's like, that's something he's gonna have to, and
Exactly
that's why I feel like we're gonna have to see more of the family, because we have to understand why is
where
Carmi
all that
like this,
came
and how
from.
is he
Hmm.
gonna deal with all of this.
I'm
It's gonna be
excited. I'm
very
excited.
interesting.
Okay, one more thing, and then we're gonna wrap up our little review and do a quick for the culture because I got something real tasty, right on par with the rest of this for the culture. We both have already hinted at it, but I think for both of us, our favorite episode for sure, and probably favorite arc was watching them legitimize Richie. I
Yes.
think, especially both having worked front of the house and understanding the type of nuance and the type of tact one has to do that job well, but also the idea of thinking ahead. Because when you're talking about fine dining, when you're talking about the best of the best, it is true that because they have wait lists, they have time to research who's coming. They can look and be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, so and so really likes XYZ, or they've never been to this city before XYZ, like, so we want to do this. Watching him go from being completely clueless on how to treat
Mm-hmm.
people in a dining establishment to being an expert at people was so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. It was such
Yeah.
a beautiful character development arc that I think we rarely get to see something like that happen in one season. Because
Yeah.
the first season, I don't think we saw him care. We saw his care
Yeah.
shift from care mostly about him and his role in it to understanding what caring about the restaurant means to Carmy and
Mm-hmm.
having a understanding of the bigger picture. But his story arc in season 2, you see
Yes.
this man metamorphosize and
You see
want to
him
be a
find
better
his.
him. He finds
Yes.
himself and he fights for what is important. Like, because you see him want to
I
be a
feel like
better
that's
man for his
him
daughter.
becoming a man, honestly. I feel
Yes,
like too,
yes.
because it's like, and it's so crazy because when you're a kid and you like when you see adults, you think that they're like these all-knowing beings that like have life figured out, and then you become one. And like watching the show, you can
Mm-hmm.
see the child in him. You can see a
Yes.
child who never felt like they had a purpose, never felt like they were really good at anything,
Boom.
just kind of, and nobody pushed them, nobody motivated them, nobody told them they could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they just kind of went with the flow. And it was like you could tell, like even when we saw him prior with his wife, or I don't know if they were married at the time, but the
Mm-hmm.
baby mother. When you
Right.
saw, I didn't want to be ghetto about it, but I can't remember if they were married.
I don't either.
But when
I
you
don't think they
saw
were.
him with her, it's like he always just wanted something for himself and to be good at something.
Mm-hmm.
And to feel like, okay, I have a thing and I'm good at this thing. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, like he wanted purpose. He wanted purpose to his life.
That's what he was looking
And I
for.
feel like people, because he couldn't figure that out, or like he couldn't verbalize that, the way that people saw him act is how they began to treat him. And I think he never really matured, because he was always, even with him always being with their family, it makes me wonder, like, how was he treated in his family? You know what I'm
That's a
saying?
good question.
Because we saw him honestly grow up and become a man in that moment and find himself and really see himself, see that he actually has skills, talents, he's good
yeah.
at something. You know what I mean? So that was, I ain't never went from like hating to loving a character in a show before, especially so
quick.
fast.
So quickly, like, because that's how it was for me. Is I just, that whole episode where he's out and what do they call it? Stashing. Is it stashing? I think that's what they called it when he
Yeah,
goes to stash. Yeah, I think that's what it's
stage,
called. Huh? Say it
stage.
again.
It's spelled like stage, but they say it French, so it's like
Stash.
stage.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Stash. That's what it was. I said stash like stash.
No.
Staging. Yes.
Stage.
Staging. So yes, I enjoyed watching that whole arc of his stage, because for him to go and see how even the person who polishes the silverware
Mm-hmm.
is so incredibly important to the
Take
function of the
pride
entire
in what they
business.
do.
And he
Yeah.
hadn't had a chance to see that. Prior, it was just him and Mikey, and they were the most important
Mm-hmm.
parts of the business. Whether or not he showed up, whether or not he did his job well, they were the most important parts of the business. Now he got to feel what it means to be
Mm-hmm.
important to the business. And I think that was just beautiful arc. Beautiful, beautiful arc. Gorgeous gowns. I loved it.
Yes.
So guys, I think obviously you can tell from both of us we're saying watch The Bear. And I know that for some people
The
it's
Bear.
you might not love it. It might not be your favorite thing, but give it a try. I think most people would enjoy this show.
Mm-hmm.
I give it a rave review, and I don't typically recommend a lot of shows to people, especially not people who I know don't have the same interests. But after I finished this one, I told Dee, I was like, and again, I don't recommend a whole lot of shows. I was like, Dee, I think you should watch this one. I think you'll love it. It's really good. I can't stop thinking about it. I
And
can't stop
usually
talking
when
about it.
people recommend, I be a little nervous because
Me
I'm the type of
too.
person, you gotta get me first episode. If you don't get me first episode,
Exactly.
by
And that's what
episode
I
2,
remember
I'm
saying.
lost
Yes.
and confused. I ain't really paying attention no more.
The show, and I
Y'all
will tell
aliens being real
anybody
nice.
like that, because I'm like that, D's like that. I will tell you,
Mhm.
this is the kind of show Make it
Yes.
past the first 15 minutes because the first 5 will have you really confused. But
I
make
was
it
so
past the
confused.
first, so confused in the first
But
5.
by the end of the first episode, I was in.
It's like,
I was in.
okay, now, so watch the first episode, literally, beginning to end. Just watch it
Mhm.
uninterrupted. Give it your focus. Have your little drink, a little blizzity, a little, popcorn, whatever's your thing, and just tune in because there are 2 seasons out now. The third season's about to premiere. We're excited. We'll probably review it
Yes.
because all of the episodes are going to be streaming on June 27th. So we might do a circle back around and see if we can continue this conversation on the bear. Uh, and before we get into the For the Culture, y'all know we very rarely tell y'all what our next episode is going to be about, but this one has been
Mhm.
months in the making,
And
literally.
we got to tell you so that you can be
So you can be
prepared.
prepared. You got to watch everything leading up to it. Y'all, next episode, we will be reviewing X-Men 97, and we cannot wait. Yes. I mean, okay, all right. Okay, I was about to be in the cartoon just then. So yes, X-Men 97, there's one more episode, which by the time this airs, that episode will be out. By the time this
When
airs,
y'all
y'all will have had
watch
all
it.
the time to watch all 10 episodes and to have watched the previous 5 seasons of X-Men, the animated series. So that's between you and your guide, and your
Yes.
ancestors. So figure it out. But we will be reviewing that next. And we're both so excited as X-Men nerds, as Marvel heads. We're just really excited.
And
So,
just because of how exciting the season has been, has me excited.
so delicious. Literally like
Every episode.
finger smacking good.
Yes.
Isn't that what the Colonel used to say? It has been like,
Finger licking good?
what, same thing.
Finger smacking is so funny.
Somebody said somebody some finger smacking, I feel like, or I could have just made it up. It's totally possible. Uh, Now, this week's For the Culture is actually something someone I recently introduced D to, and I want to introduce our whole 50 fam to it, and to him. So excited. I don't know why I keep saying that. So excited because there is, I found this guy on Twitter, and yes, I still call it Twitter, and I'll call it Twitter until the day that it's over, until I'm over.
It's gonna always be.
It's always gonna be Twitter. So I was on Twitter and I came across black gentleman with locks, and he sounded really nerdy, little
Mhm.
cornball-ish. But he was making tea, and he was showing people how to make different types of tea drinks with loose leaf tea, with fruit, with vegetables. Even he makes everything like himself. He does it in a French press. Or in a
Mhm.
tea press. It's just really unique. And his name is Minty Bong Water. Exactly as it
Yeah.
sounds, y'all. Minty Bong Water. You can find him on
Yeah.
IG. You can find him on Twitter. And he has some of the most interesting content when it comes to tea. And
I
D and I
love
are
when
both
he
tea
pop up on
drinkers.
my IG timeline.
Doesn't it just make you? He's got
And
such a
he
happy
reads a little
energy
thing.
about
He's
him.
like, okay.
Yeah. You want me to make
He's
a
gonna make
blueberry
tea.
pomegranate tea? Okay, let's do it. Like, and then he just goes to the wall and does it. I love it. And I mean, I've seen him make everything from blueberry pomegranate green tea to I watched him make like a melon drop tea cocktail. I've
Mhm.
seen him do lemonade teas and all types of things. He did a banana cream tea the other day, and it's some
Yeah,
of
I
the
saw
most.
that too.
It's not that you all will make all of these teas and that this is going to be perfect content for how you're going to change your life into being a tea head, but what
And
it
he gives
might
honest
do,
reviews on them too.
he
Like
gives
if
and
he's
if he
not
doesn't
really
like it,
feeling the tea, he'll
he'll
say
tell you.
it.
But it gives you, like, for me, it's a de-stressor for me. It also has a touch of ASMR to it because he's got a very kind of
Mhm.
calm voice. He sounds so nerdy, and I love nerds. Nerds are like my favorite demographic. And he's just got this, you can tell he loves what he does. You can tell he's truly fascinated by flavor combinations. And being that we both love tea, that's why I
Mhm.
introduced D to it, is because
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never seen tea content like this before. I've seen,
Yeah.
in Korea, in certain other parts of Asia, they do unique steamed fruits with their teas and things like that they might try. A beauty tea that has a poached pear in it, and goji berries and rose petals. Pretty, and it has benefits, but I've never seen someone receive ideas from people. Like, hey, I want to see a peach such and such tea. And then be like, okay, let's do it. And he'll procure the ingredients and he'll figure it out. And he'll make it and he'll tell you if it's better hot or if it's better cold. He'll tell you if you should spike it. You know, what kind of day to drink it on, what it reminds you of.
Yeah.
I love that the most about when he tries things. He says, you know, like I think he did the banana cream the other day, and with the tea that he actually used, he said, it kind of has that banana nut bread vibe. You know, you get a little bit of the cinnamon and a little bit of the clove, a little nutmeg. And I'm like, you better give me the notes. I better be able to taste this.
Right.
I better know exactly what you're saying. Black owned content, a Black creator. Y'all check him out. Minty Bongwater on IG, on Twitter. He is phenomenal.
Sells
He's got some
teas
great
too,
content.
doesn't
He does what?
he? I think he sells teas too, doesn't
He
he?
does. He sells teas and he sells his little presses with his face on it, his little Minty Bongwater logo on there. I have to get
Yes,
one.
that is.
I have to
Yeah, I'm
get
like,
one.
I
Yeah.
have to get
I
impressed.
have to get one because I have the electric kettle. We have electric kettles, and
Period.
you know, period. And I just it's so I'm all about we're all about supporting Black businesses, supporting small businesses, and supporting, you know, even niche companies that are just so different from what else is out there. And he is that. He brings that to the table. So check out Minty Bongwater. Again, we thank y'all for tuning in and listening to our review of The Bear this week. It was totally a journey to consume, but I think you
Yeah.
all will enjoy it as well. Check it out, get in those comments, tell us what y'all think, engage with us, and prepare for next week's X-Men review, y'all. Period. Ba-da.